Hey guys, so it's 2020 and maybe one of your resolutions is to eat more fish. Maybe you want to cut down on your red meat, maybe you want to broaden your culinary horizons. Whatever your reason, how do you get there? So I've heard from a lot of people that even though you want to eat fish, you want to cook fish, you're scared of it. And I totally get it. I mean, fish is expensive. The protein is super delicate, you don't want to ruin it, and you know, it can get complicated when you go to the store. You get farmed, do you get wild, what's sustainable, and you might just want to throw your hands in the air and say like, forget it, I'm only going to eat fish when I go out to the restaurant. But, come on, you can learn how to cook fish, and I'm going to show you 3 foolproof ways to make it at home, and it is going to be impossible to ruin it. Just trust me. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to make is a barramundi en papillote. Let's translate that. Barramundi is a great, delicate white fish, and it's an awesome sustainable alternative to sea bass. And it might be a little hard to find, I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's worth seeking out. And if you're looking at fish as sort of like, you're sort of dipping your toe into fish cooking, make it a special occasion. Go to that specialty market, go to the fishmonger, and get that fish that you really want to try for. So this is the fillet right here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to pat it dry a little bit. I would also do this when you first start cooking because you want your fish fillet to come to room temperature. Why do you want it to be room temperature? If you can warm it up a little bit, then the oven doesn't have to do so much work. So there's less of a likelihood that it's going to be cooked on the outside, even overcooked on the outside, and raw on the inside. This is my papillote. What does papillote mean? It means in paper. And so what's awesome about this technique is that I'm just going to put the fish in with some flavoring, and it is going to steam inside this paper envelope. And it's awesome because there's so much moisture that's going to be trapped in here that it's going to be impossible to overcook. Why does food overcook? It's because it is dry. It won't get dry in here, I guarantee it. First, we're going to make our bed of little mix-ins. So I was inspired by a niçoise salad. Niçoise salad is one of my favorites. And I'm just going to trim these. And then I'm just gonna cut these on the bias. That's sort of the traditional cut for a niçoise salad. It doesn't really matter, but it's just fine. You definitely wanna cut the vegetables relatively small because it's not gonna be in the oven for a really long time. So you wanna make sure that they get a chance to cook. And these are green beans cut on the bias. You can also use haricots verts, which are those skinny French beans. They're a little more tender, but I couldn't find them at the store, so it's not a big deal. All right, now I'm gonna prepare everything else that we're going to put in this papillote, so it's all ready and we can assemble it, no problem. So here I have some grape tomatoes. I like to keep them whole because I like that little burst of juice, but I do like to puncture them a little bit, which helps the juice come out when it's heated. And of course, the key to cooking on papillote is the moisture that's going to be in there because that moisture is going to turn into steam, and the steam is going to cook and flavor the fish. Okay, and then I have some oil-cured olives, and I really love these because they are so flavorful. I mean, they're a little tough to eat just plain. You wouldn't eat them like you would eat like a cheese platter olive. They are so good in cooking because they are packed with brine and fat and all of those good things. So I'm gonna take that here and then chop that up. You don't need a ton because like I said, they are really flavorful. And you definitely wanna chop them up because if you get this whole olive in your mouth, it's gonna be like a lot at once. Assemble this papillote. I have this, it's relatively a square. It'll depend on what size your fish fillet is. And then I'm going to season it a little bit on top. And then I'm gonna put our green beans. I'm gonna put our tomatoes, and then I'm going to put our olives. Fold this up. And you just want to sort of crimp up the sides. All right, I'm going to pop this in the oven at 375 for about 20 minutes. If you have a thinner fillet, then you can go 15 minutes. If you have a thicker fillet, you can go 25 minutes. Like I said before, this cooking method is basically foolproof. So even if you go a little over, it's not a big deal. All right, 20 minutes, let's wait. Okay, we're ready to take this out. Looks good. Here it is. I really hope the camera can pick up all the steam that's gonna come out when I open this envelope. There it is. Could not be easier. Let's try it. I usually don't have as big a portion as this, but look at that. So the fish is coming apart so easily. It is perfectly cooked. I'm gonna get one of these smashed tomatoes and some of the olives. A perfect bite. They're so moist, so flavorful, so easy. I really love the olives in here because they bring a little bit of zing to something that, you know, steaming isn't typically known as a super flavorful cooking medium. And yet, when you add these delicious flavor bombs like these oil-cured olives, and then you add these fresh veggies and you add amazing, tender, delicate fish, I mean, it's the easiest dinner ever. So these salade niçoise flavors are definitely a go-to for me, but you can use any sort of delicate white fish, you know, cod or halibut or tilapia. All of those would work really well in this preparation. And then in terms of flavors, you really want to think about lots of flavor and moisture. And so those are the things that en papillote is good for, because you want that flavorful steam to come up to cook the fish. Whether you use curry or lots of spices or lots of herbs or lots of citrus, you want to make sure that you have something that's going to create really flavorful steam to create this beautiful preparation that is going to taste way more complicated than it really was. So the next thing we're going to make is a low and slow roasted miso ginger glazed wild sockeye salmon.
Right, okay, so a low and slow miso and ginger glazed wild sockeye salmon.
If you can, it's good to get wild because as opposed to farm salmon, wild does not have as many contaminants, antibiotics. Wild salmon also has a better nutritional profile. And you can see that because it has this beautiful pink color, and that's how you can tell that the salmon was eating the good stuff and it wasn't sort of plumped up for the sake of being plumped up. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this out so it can come to room temperature. All right, now we're going to make this miso glaze, and I just have some white miso here. Get a good amount. And so basically what you're doing is sort of like a very concentrated miso soup. So I have the miso, and then I have a little bit of hot water here that I've already boiled, and then I just want to like barely thin it out. All right, and now that's sort of a loose paste. I'm gonna add a little bit of honey. And so what's nice about this low and slow method is that the fat in the salmon will slowly melt and permeate into the fish. And now I'm just going to mince up a little bit of ginger. You know, some people like to peel their ginger with a spoon, and honestly, I think just cutting it is a lot easier. This is a super easy sauce. It's already salty, it's sweet, it's a little spicy, and it'll go so well with this low and slow roasted fish. All right, next I'm just going to spoon this glaze on top. You don't need to pre-season your fish because the miso is plenty salty. So I'm gonna pop this in the oven at 275 for about 30 minutes. I'll check on it after then. And so 275 probably seems really, really low, and that's the point. You want a really low heat because you want to gently cook this fish. And when you're using gentle heat, it's much harder to overcook. So the fish has been in the oven for 20 minutes, but I gave it a check and I think it's ready. Check it out. So this was a pretty thin fillet, so it cooked pretty fast. And look, it passed the flake test. Look, this just gently peeled off the fish. I know Wally wants some. Maybe I'll give him a little bit. Let's have a taste. It's meltingly tender. It's silky, it's smooth. It's so good that Wally wants a taste right now. Sit. And the technique couldn't be easier. I know there are a lot of you that might already be salmon cooks, but this is a fun new way to try something different that is also super simple. For our last thing, what do you do when you're afraid of cooking fish, but you want to eat fish? Just don't cook it. Use already cooked fish. And I know that's a little bit of a cheat, but come on. I mean, now you can get such good canned fish, whether it's herring or mackerel, or what I'm gonna be using today, sardines. And so sardines are awesome because they are one of the most sustainable fishes around. And then two, they are low on the food chain. So as opposed to something like tuna, which is high in the food chain and collects a lot of mercury because of all of the fish that it's feeding on, sardines are pretty much all good. And you don't really have to worry about issues in mercury or sustainability, so you can just really enjoy the fish. Speaking of tuna, this recipe is inspired by tuna, and it's basically just a tuna salad, but with sardines. So here I already have some skinless, boneless sardines, and they were packed in olive oil. I drained that off a little bit. But obviously, olive oil is a good fat. The omega-3s in the fish are a good fat. So this is a really good, even just like a healthy snack. I mean, one can, honestly, I could just eat this as an afternoon snack. So here I have some celery. I think celery is the most important ingredient in a tuna salad. I mean, celery, so underrated, right? Some lemon. And then I like to use Kewpie mayo. This is a Japanese mayo that is a little sweeter, but you can use whatever mayo you have on hand. And I don't like, I mean, this might be a lot of mayo for people who don't like mayo, but to me that's not a lot. Just enough to really bind it. And then depending on your fish, it may or may not need salt. I'm gonna add some grinds of pepper. And then I think it's pretty good as is. It doesn't need seasoning. But what you can do, this is one of my favorite snacks. It's kind of like one of those things that you eat like when you're single or when your husband or your wife isn't home. Like, what'd you have for dinner? I had sardines on crackers. Totally acceptable. So So there you have it. We have 3 different ways that you can prepare fish in the new year. I hope this gives you some confidence to bring some fish into your cooking repertoire and have fun experimenting. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks. Wally, you want some fish? All right, Wally, sit. Wally. Sardine salad, miso glazed salmon, and a Niçoise style barramundi. Which one you want to try? Which one you want to try? All of them? No, you can't have all of them. Maybe later, okay?